The family court judge looked at my daughter and her husband like she'd seen their kind before, and wasn't impressed. Mr. and Mrs. Holloway. Judge Marilyn Teague set down the folder and folded her hands. I've reviewed the petition. Before I say anything else, I want to hear from the respondents directly. She looked at me. Mr. Fenton, in your own words. My attorney, a sharp woman named Carla Dix, had coached me on this moment. Stay calm. Don't perform. Just tell the truth. Your Honor, I said. 14 months ago, I fell off a ladder cleaning gutters, broke my collarbone, cracked 3 ribs, and tore the rotator cuff in my right shoulder. I was 63 years old, living alone in Phoenix, and I called my daughter for help. I paused. She told me she and her husband were leaving for a wine tour in Napa the next morning and couldn't change their plans. And your response? I hired a home health aide and handled it myself. And then I stopped sending them their monthly wire transfer. Judge Teague looked at my daughter. Mrs. Bick Sending, Holloway, this petition claims your father is mentally incapacitated and unable to manage his own financial affairs. You've submitted supporting documentation from a Dr. Vance. She held up a single sheet. I've had my clerk contact Dr. Vance's office. Turns out Dr. Al Vance retired 2 years ago and has no record of ever examining your father. Do you want to explain that? My daughter's attorney started to rise. Judge Teague waved him back down without looking at him. I'm asking your client. My daughter, Renee Holloway, née Fenton, 41 years old, someone I used to carry on my shoulders when she was small enough to fit, stood up slowly. Your Honor, there may have been a miscommunication with that's a fraudulent document, Mrs. Holloway. I want to be very clear that I understand what I'm looking at. The judge's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Your father is here today, answering questions coherently, without prompting, after having managed a real estate sale, established 2 new bank accounts, and retained competent legal counsel. None of that suggests incapacity. All of it suggests someone who realized he was being taken advantage of and took steps to protect himself. Renee's husband, Dale, shifted in his seat beside her. He'd barely looked at me since we walked in. That was fine. I hadn't come here for eye contact. The petition is denied. Judge Teague signed something in the folder. Furthermore, I'm ordering the petitioners to reimburse the respondents' legal costs. Ms. Dix, what's the total? $14,200, Your Honor, payable within 60 days. And counselor? She looked at their attorney over her reading glasses. I'd strongly suggest you have a frank conversation with your clients about the nature of the documents they brought to this court. We're done. The gavel came down. Carla shook my hand in the hallway. Her grip was firm and satisfied. Clean sweep, she said quietly. How do you feel? I thought about it. I'd driven myself to that courthouse, parked in the structure on Jefferson, paid the machine, walked 3 blocks. 8 months ago, I couldn't lift my right arm above my waist. Ready to go home, I said. From behind us, I heard Renee's voice, tight and controlled, the way it always got when she was furious and trying not to show it in public. Dad. I turned. She was standing 10 feet away, Dale just behind her, their attorney visibly trying to become part of the wall. Renee's face was composed except around her eyes. We need to talk about this, she said, like adults. We just did, I said. In there. I nodded toward the courtroom. The judge handled it. I turned and walked toward the elevator. My phone started buzzing before I reached the parking structure. Renee. I sent it to voicemail. It rang again and again by the time I got home to my apartment in Tempe. Not the house in Scottsdale, which I'd sold, but my new place, modest and quiet and entirely mine. I had counted 41 missed calls, 37 from Renee, 4 from Dale, who never called me under any other circumstances in 14 years of marriage to my daughter. I listened to the voicemails in order. The first few were controlled. Dad, this isn't over. We should really talk. Please call me back. By the 7th, her voice had slipped a gear. You think you've won something? You've destroyed this family. You know that. You've destroyed it. By the 15th, something else entirely. I won't repeat it. I saved them all to a folder on my computer and backed it up to the cloud. Documentation you never knew when you'd need it. I made myself a sandwich, turkey, Swiss mustard, the same lunch I'd been making for 40 years, and sat at the kitchen table and thought about how I'd gotten here. My wife, Catherine, died of pancreatic cancer 11 years ago. We've been married 34 years. After she passed, I kept working. I was a regional sales manager for a commercial HVAC company, and I kept the house, and I kept going to church on Sundays, and I kept being Renee's father, even though Renee had moved to Scottsdale 6 years before that with Dale, who sold software to dental practices and had strong opinions about wine and very little else. I wasn't a perfect father. I worked too much when Renee was growing up. Catherine was the anchor. When she died, Renee and I were suddenly just two people who loved the same woman and didn't quite know what to do with each other. So I tried to help. That's what I told myself. When Dale's business had a bad year and they were stretched thin, I started sending $2,000 a month, just until things stabilized. That was 9 years ago. Things stabilized within 8 months. The transfers continued. I raised it to $3,500 when they bought a bigger house in Arcadia, then to $4,500 when Renee told me the HOA fees were more than expected. I told myself I was being a good father. I told myself Catherine would have wanted me to take care of our daughter. What I was actually doing was buying a relationship that should have cost nothing. I retired at 62 with a decent pension, Social Security, and about $340,000 in savings. The monthly transfers to Renee and Dale were $4,800 by then. In 9 years, I'd sent them somewhere north of $480,000. I hadn't counted exactly until Carla made me count for the court filing. Seeing that number written out on a legal document did something to me that I can't fully describe. It wasn't just money. It was proof of how thoroughly I had avoided facing the truth about what my daughter and I had become. The ladder accident changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning in late October. The sycamore in the front yard dropped leaves into the gutters every year, and I'd been cleaning them myself since 1994. I was at the top of the ladder when my right foot slipped. I remember the moment of understanding, oh, this is actually happening, and then the ground. I lay there for a while. My neighbor's dog barked twice from behind the fence. I managed to get to my phone and called 911. The ambulance came. Broken collarbone, 3 cracked ribs, rotator cuff tear requiring surgery. The ER doctor told me I was lucky I hadn't hit my head. From the hospital, I called Renee. It was the first time in years I'd called her needing something rather than offering it. She answered on the 3rd ring. She sounded slightly out of breath the way she always did when she was packing or organizing something. Dad? Hey, what's up? I told her what had happened. There was a pause. Oh my God. Are you okay? Like, are you going to be okay? I'm going to need some help for a few weeks. The surgery is Wednesday. After that, I'll be in a sling and I won't be able to drive or cook properly or, Dad. Another pause. Longer. I have to tell you something. Dale and I are leaving for Napa tomorrow morning. We've had this trip planned since February. The hotel is non-refundable. The tastings are booked. We've been looking forward to it for months. I waited to see if there was more. I mean, you said you're going to be okay, right? Like it's not life-threatening? No, I said. It's not life-threatening. So, I mean, you could hire someone, right? Like a nurse or a home health person? I'll help you find one if you want. I can look some up tonight before we leave. I told her I could find my own aid. I told her to enjoy her trip. I hung up and stared at the ceiling tiles of the ER bay for a long time. The surgery went fine. My neighbor, a retired postal worker named George, drove me home afterward and sat with me the first evening. I hired a home health aide named Frances through an agency. Sharp, efficient, no nonsense. Exactly what I needed. She came every morning for 6 weeks and made sure I ate properly and did my physical therapy exercises and didn't do anything stupid with my one good arm. Renee texted from Napa. Hope surgery went well. Thinking of you. We got the most incredible Cabernet yesterday. There was a photo of a vineyard. That was the moment I understood. Not with anger. I'd been expecting anger. Had been waiting for it to arrive. But with a strange clarity, the kind that comes after you've been looking at something sideways for years, and then finally turn to face it directly. My daughter didn't love me. She loved what I provided, and I'd taught her to be that way, slowly and steadily, over 9 years of wire transfers that I never made her ask for, never attached any condition to, never required any accounting of. I had funded the construction of a daughter who saw me as a resource. The Monday after she got back from Napa, I called my bank and cancelled the automatic transfer. Then I called Carla Dix, whose card I'd gotten from a friend at church who'd gone through a nasty estate dispute. Then I called my financial advisor and we started rearranging things. I gave it 3 days before I said anything to Renee because I wanted to see how long it took her to notice. It took 11 days. 11 days before she called me. Not to ask how I was doing, not to apologize for Napa, but because the transfer hadn't posted. Dad, I think there's an issue with your bank. Did you get an alert? The money didn't come through. There's no issue with the bank, I said. I cancelled it. The silence on the line had a specific texture I'd never heard from my daughter before. What? I cancelled the transfer. I've decided to stop sending the monthly payments. Dad, you can't just... She stopped, recalibrated. I could practically hear it. Dad, are you feeling okay? Has something happened? I'm worried about you. I'm fine, I said. I've never been clearer. What followed were 3 months that I wouldn't wish on anyone. Renee went through every mode available to her. Worry, hurt, anger, negotiation, more anger, and finally the petition. They hired a doctor who, it turned out, had lost his license. I suspect they didn't actually know that, had just found someone willing to write what they needed without asking questions. Or maybe they did know. I'd stopped trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. Dale called me once during those 3 months. Just once. Frank, he said. He always called me Frank, never Dad, even after 14 years. I think you and Renee need to sit down and work through some things. This is getting out of hand. Dale, I said, which part are you having trouble with? The part where I fell off a ladder and your wife chose a wine tasting over coming to help? Or the part where you tried to have me declared incompetent because I stopped giving you money? He hung up. The court hearing was in March. After the ruling, the weeks went quiet. I didn't hear from Renee or Dale. George came by twice for coffee, and to help me with some yard work my shoulder still wouldn't let me do alone. Frances, who I'd kept on 2 mornings a week even after my recovery because she made excellent oatmeal and gave direct answers to direct questions, was the only person I talked to about any of it. She'll come around or she won't, Frances told me one morning, sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee. Either way, you'll be okay. I know, I said. And I did. My granddaughter called me in April. Her name is Lily. She's 13. She's Renee and Dale's daughter, and she's, without any exaggeration, the finest person I know. She has a grandmother's eyes and her great-grandmother's stubbornness, and she reads more books than anyone I've ever met. Grandpa, she said, her voice small in the way it got when she was worried. Mom and Dad have been fighting a lot. I know, sweetheart. I'm sorry you have to hear that. Dad said it's because they can't pay for things. The car payment bounced and Mom cried for a long time in the bathroom. A pause. Is it because of the money you stopped sending? I thought carefully. Lily was 13 and smarter than most adults I knew. She deserved a real answer, not a cushioned one. Your parents built a life that needed my help to run, I said. When I stopped helping, they have to figure out how to make it work differently. That's hard, but it's something they have to do. Did they do something wrong to you? Yes. The ladder accident? Yes. Another pause. I could hear her thinking. I would have come, she said simply. If you'd called me, I would have figured out a way to come. I had to breathe through that one. I know you would have. That means more than you know. Can I come visit? I haven't seen the apartment yet. Any time you want. I'll take you to that bookstore on Mill Avenue you like. I heard a door open and close somewhere in Lily's house, and her voice got quieter. I have to go. But Grandpa? Don't let them change your mind, okay? Whatever they say, don't. 13 years old. Drew Carla. I received regular updates on the practical fallout. Dale and Renee had missed 2 mortgage payments on the Arcadia house. The $14,200 in court costs remained unpaid as the deadline approached. Their credit cards were maxed. Carla had pieced this together from court filings related to a separate debt dispute, and Dale had applied for a pay advance at work that had been denied. I didn't feel satisfaction at any of this in the way I'd expected to. Mostly, I felt tired, and occasionally, unexpectedly, sad. Not for them, they had made their choices, but for the version of my daughter I'd invented and believed in for so long. That person didn't exist. Maybe she never had. But I'd loved her. In June, Dale called again. His voice sounded different this time. Flatter. I need to talk to you, he said. Not about the money. I know that's done. I need to say something. We met at a coffee shop in Tempe, just off campus, a place full of students. Dale was already there when I arrived. He was wearing a polo shirt I'd seen him in before, but he was missing a button at the collar and he hadn't noticed or hadn't cared. He looked like he'd been sleeping badly for months. I sat down across from him. He wrapped both hands around his coffee cup. I owe you an apology, he said, for everything, but especially for the petition. It was wrong. Renee's idea originally, but I agreed to it and I shouldn't have. I knew it was wrong and I did it anyway. I didn't say anything. We're losing the house, he continued. We can't make the payments. We're listing it next month. A pause. Renee and we're not doing well. I think we might separate. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and found that I mostly meant it. No, you're not. He said it without hostility, and I don't blame you. I want you to know that I understand why you did what you did. You should have done it years ago. Honestly, if I were you, I would have. I studied him. Dale had always struck me as a man who moved through life with complete confidence in his own taste and judgment. The kind of person who could make you feel subtly unsophisticated without ever saying anything directly unkind. This man sitting across from me looked like that person had been disassembled and only partially put back together. What are you going to do? I asked. Try to be a better father to Lily than I was a son-in-law to you. He almost smiled. That's about all I've got right now. We finished our coffee without saying much else. When we stood to leave, Dale extended his hand. I looked at it for a moment, then shook it. Not forgiveness. An acknowledgement that we were both still here. The house sold in August, faster than anyone expected. A young couple paid $780,000. The Arcadia neighborhood had appreciated since Renee and Dale bought in. After the mortgage payoff, the court costs, and the credit card balances, they cleared about $90,000. Dale found an apartment in Mesa. Renee moved into a smaller rental in the same school district so Lily could finish 8th grade without changing schools. Through Lily, I heard that Renee had started working full-time for the first time in 11 years. A position managing a medical billing office. Something she'd trained for before she met Dale. She was good at it, apparently. Her supervisor had said so. Lily relayed this with a very particular tone, the kind that said, I'm telling you this because I think you should know, and I think you might feel something complicated about it. I did. I called Carla and had her add a protected education account for Lily to my estate documents, funded directly, structured so Lily controlled it when she turned 21, bypassing Renee and Dale entirely. Not out of cruelty, just clarity. Lily's future was Lily's. September came. I was in the garage of my new apartment complex. They had a small shared workshop space, working on a floor lamp I'd picked up at an estate sale, repairing the wiring, the kind of quiet mechanical work I'd always used to think George had come by and was sitting on a stool reading a novel, the way he did sometimes. My phone buzzed. Renee. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Dad. Her voice was different. Not the controlled fury of the voicemails. Not the Nico-stroiled fury of the voicemails. Not the negotiating tone I'd heard so many times. Something stripped back. Can we meet? I know I don't have any right to ask. I'd like to see you. We met on a Saturday at a park near Tempe Town Lake. She was already there when I arrived, sitting on a bench, and when she saw me walking toward her, she stood up, and for a moment she looked exactly like she had at 7 years old, waiting for me outside school. I don't know what I looked like to her. We sat. For a while, neither of us said anything. A family was throwing a frisbee on the grass nearby. 2 kids, a dog, a father who kept diving badly for the frisbee and making his kids laugh. I keep trying to figure out when it happened, Renee said finally. When I stopped. When I started thinking of you as something to be managed instead of someone to be loved. I watched the frisbee arc. I think it was gradual, I said. For both of us. I made it easy. You shouldn't have had to make it hard. That's not, I'm an adult. I should have been a daughter. She was quiet for a moment. I called the hospital, you know, after the fact. The hospital where you've had your surgery. I talked to someone in patient services. I don't know what I wanted. To know what it looked like, what I left you to. I haven't known that. The aide they connected you with, Francis. The note said she was there every morning for 6 weeks. She brought you meals. Renee's voice tightened. I should have been doing that. Yes, I said. You should have, she flinched. Good. I'd spent enough years softening things that needed to stay sharp. I'm not asking to go back to how things were, she said. The money, I mean, even if I understand. That's done. I'm not here about that. Then what are you here about? She turned and looked at me directly for the first time. I'm here because you're my father, and I was terrible to you, and I'd like to know if there's any version of the future where we're still in each other's lives. I thought about Lily on the phone. Don't let them change your mind. I thought about Catherine, what she would say. I thought about that morning at the top of the ladder, the moment before the fall, the particular silence of a Tuesday morning in October. I don't know, I said. I think that depends on whether you've actually changed or whether you're here, because Dale leaving and the house selling and the job and everything all at once has made you realize you need people. Those are different things. They're not mutually exclusive. No, they're not. I looked out at the lake. But one of them is about me and one of them is about you, and I spent 9 years only thinking about what you needed. I'm not doing that anymore. I know. I don't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever entirely. But I'm willing to see. I paused. Lily visits me on the 2nd Saturday of every month. She picks the bookstore. I buy lunch. You can come to one of those if you want. No agenda. No discussions about the past. Just time. Renee looked at the lake. Something moved across her face that I couldn't quite name. Relief, maybe. Or grief. Sometimes they look the same. Okay, she said. Yes, I'd like that. We sat there for another few minutes. The Frisbee family packed up and left. The dog barked once at a duck and then was scolded and settled down. When we stood to leave, Renee reached out and touched my arm. Not a hug, not yet, but a hand on my forearm. Brief and careful, the way you touch something you're not sure will hold. I let her. On the drive home, I thought about the 9 years. The transfers, the phone calls where I asked nothing and gave everything. The story I'd told myself about what kind of father I was. Generous. Devoted. Keeping the family together. What I'd actually been doing was buying to mission, not to have the harder conversation. The one where I told my daughter that love was not the same as money, that family required showing up, that there would come a day when I needed her, and what she did in that moment would tell me everything I needed to know. That day came. And she failed. And because she failed, I finally stopped lying to myself. Frances was at the apartment when I got back, dropping off a casserole she'd made. She'd started doing that occasionally, just showing up with food and a firm refusal to discuss whether it was necessary. "How did it go?" she asked, setting the dish on the counter. "Hard to say. Better than it could have. Worse than I hoped." She nodded like this was a satisfying answer. "You eating tonight, or are you going to sit out there and think about it?" "Probably both." "Good." She picked up her bag. "The casserole's better hot. Don't let it sit." After she left, I sat in the kitchen with the food getting hot in the oven and thought about Lily, who was 13 and wiser than either of her parents, and about Dale in his Mesa apartment learning for the first time what it felt like to earn everything you had, and about Renee in her rental house going to work every morning managing something real. And I thought about Catherine, what she would make of all of it. I thought she might say something like, "You let it go on too long, Francis." She always called me by my full name when she was making a point, but you did something about it eventually, and that's what matters. That's probably what she would say. The oven timer went off. I got up, took out the casserole, and ate at the kitchen table with the window open, listening to the October evening, which in Phoenix sounds like distant traffic and palm fronds and the particular silence of desert air after sundown. Peaceful. Mine. I had my self-respect. I had my health. I had Lily on the second Saturday of every month. It wasn't everything, but it was real. And real, I had learned, was worth more than I'd been charging for it. I keep coming back to that Tuesday morning in October. The top of the ladder, the foot slipping, and then the ground. In the seconds before I hit, there was no panic. Just a strange, clear understanding that something was about to change. I didn't know then how much. What I know now is that cause and consequence are patient. They don't rush. They let you build something crooked for years. A relationship built on money instead of honesty, on giving instead of asking, on comfort instead of truth. And then one day the whole thing settles under its own weight, and you finally see what was holding it up. Or rather, what wasn't. I was not blameless in what happened between Renee and me. I've thought about that honestly, and that honesty matters to me. I spent 9 years making it easy for her to take without asking, to receive without gratitude, to treat my generosity as a given rather than a gift. I told myself that was love. It wasn't. It was avoidance dressed up as devotion. Real love requires you to be honest, even when honesty costs something. I wasn't willing to pay that cost until a fall from a ladder made the choice for me. What strikes me about Lily, 13 years old, more clear-eyed than most people I've known twice her age, is that nobody taught her to be that way. She came to it herself. She understood that showing up for someone when they're hurt is not optional, not something you weigh against a hotel cancellation policy. She knew that without being told, that kind of moral clarity, the instinct to do right even when it's inconvenient, isn't something you can buy or transfer or wire into someone's account. It lives in a person or it doesn't. You build it by making hard choices when you're young, and it becomes who you are. Dale surprised me. I hadn't expected that. A man who spent 14 years moving through the world on confidence and borrowed money sat across from me in a coffee shop and said, "I was wrong. I knew it was wrong, and I did it anyway." That takes something. Not courage exactly. It was too late for courage to change anything, but a kind of honest reckoning with yourself that most people never manage. He was learning, the hard way, what I should have taught through example years earlier, that a life built on someone else's effort is no life at all, that you have to earn what you keep, that the discipline of living within your means is not a limitation, it's the foundation of everything else, and Renee. I don't know yet who she's becoming. That's the honest answer. She called the hospital after the fact, found out what she'd left me to, sat with that. That's something. Whether it becomes real change or just guilt dressed up as growth, time will answer that. I've stopped trying to answer it for her. What I know is what I've learned about myself. I'm stronger than I was when I was writing those monthly transfers, telling myself I was a good father. Strength isn't what you provide, it's what you're willing to say out loud, what lines you're willing to draw and hold, what you refuse to give up, even when people who should love you are making it very hard to stay standing. I found that out lying on the ground with a broken collarbone, waiting for the ambulance. listening to my neighbor's dog bark. The ground is a good teacher. So is silence. Real is worth more than I was charging for it. I know that now.